Welcome to See You on the Other Side, where the world of the mysterious collides with the world of entertainment. A discussion of art, music, movies, spirituality, the weird, and self-discovery. And now, your hosts, musicians and entertainers who have their own weakness for the weird, Mike and Wendy from the band Sunspot.
You know what it smells like in here?
What?
You smell it? Wow, it smells like a new 5-star review.
You got me with that one.
It does.
I'm like, it smells a little, I don't know.
Like victory. It stinks of victory in this 5-star review. Let's read it quick. A Deadly Haunting by Wheaton 1. Thank you for putting these podcasts together for paranormal junkies like me. I just finished listening to A Deadly Haunting, the interview Mike had done with Deborah Moffat, and I really liked it. This is the first podcast I've ever listened to, and to be honest, the first I've ever heard of a podcast. Up until now, I didn't know what a podcast was. Your show, See You on the Other Side, deals with many aspects of the paranormal, and I'm excited to listen to all the interviews you have done so far. I highly recommend this podcast to anyone interested in the paranormal. Thanks for introducing me to your show, Mike. Well, thank you.
Yes, I second that. Thank you.
Yeah, that's really
That's
nice.
a really enthusiastic review. Wow,
agree.
that took some typing.
It
some
did.
work.
And somebody who's never tried a podcast before had to actually
exciting.
go, figure it out.
Yeah,
you know?
and hopefully they'll find
Many-
tons of entertaining hours of podcasts.
I know.
So.
I hardly listen to the radio anymore, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't either, except for when I forget to bring my phone or.
Right.
I just never.
Right. No, I mean, it's like, because you'll try to be like, okay, well, what's on? And it's like, wow, nothing.
Or it'll be like, oh, a song that I've heard 8,000 times before.
Yeah, that's what gets me. Oh, Led Zeppelin's on the classic rock station again. I didn't know they played Led Zeppelin on the classic rock station, huh?
Shocking.
Well, I mean, there's parts of radio I love. I love the fact that it's live. I love the fact that you are hearing somebody from across the town talk at the same time. And there's certain there's certain live community aspects of it that it's like you think about all the other people listening.
Hearing the same thing you are at the same time.
But then I think, am I just living this romantic notion of radio from the 1970s or something like that?
Right. No, I think the same thing too. Because my favorite part of radio is the DJs, or was the DJs.
Right.
But that's slowly, because like you were saying, knowing that they're sitting in your city and they're talking and you're in the same, I don't know, underneath the same big sky.
It makes you feel not alone.
Right. And other people are listening and people are calling in and interacting and they're talking about things happening in the city at that time. But now that they keep transitioning things over to the robotic,
the syndicated, the stuff where it's during the day, and I mean there was just something to it that you knew there was a live body in that station talking to you,
saying those words as you were hearing them, even too, because nowadays even the stations that have real DJs, they'll pre-record the section and just queue up, the next 5 hours.
And they won't even be there. And I know it saves money. It's just not the same.
Yeah.
And, if you want to, a good movie to watch, if you like to think about that radio of not being alone, a good horror movie to watch that I think you guys would enjoy is John Carpenter's The Fog.
Ooh, I've never seen that.
It's a great one, right around 1980. Adrienne Barbeau at her sexiest. And it's just a really... it's first of all, it's scary, but number two, one of the main characters is a DJ.
Whoa, okay, cool.
And so and she's live casting, not live cast, but she's broadcasting, I guess, when these things are going on. And so
Sleepless in Seattle.
I guess Sleepless in Seattle, except with zombie pirates.
Ooh. Okay, that's totally not like Sleepless in Seattle, but that's cool.
Correct.
Sounds interesting.
That's a good one to check out. And speaking, and so that takes place in a small town in California, that movie. And our episode today is about a small town in Wisconsin by the water, like The Fog. And, this is a topic that's close to my heart.
Why is that, Mike?
Well, it's because this is about things that are happening or that happened in La Crosse, Wisconsin.
And I know why that place is close to your heart, but maybe you can share with the listeners.
Okay, so I lived in La Crosse for 2 years, and that's where I had my first job after college, was at the TV station there. I directed the morning news
I remember that.
Yes, that was
an early wake up call.
Yes,
of job.
it was. Yeah, I had to be in at 4 a.m. every day. And so that's broadcasting.
Lots of coffee. Lots of Mountain Dew, huh?
I used to drink like damn near a pot of coffee every day. Like I would just be by the time I was done.
I shouldn't scoff at that. That's pretty much where I'm at right now, actually.
That was my eye opener, and just it was. But so La Crosse, Wisconsin is a town of about 50,000 people, and it's on the Mississippi River.
And it's beautiful.
It is a beautiful place. It's right on the Wisconsin border. So on one side of the river is La Crosse, Mississippi, and one side of the river is Minnesota. And then maybe a few miles away is Iowa. So it's really right in that corner where Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Iowa all meet. Mm-hmm. And, there's a lot of fun to the town. There's a university there. And there's plenty of cool, interesting people and venues. And we used to play there fairly frequently, especially when I lived there.
And they also have the beautiful bluffs. Mm-hmm. So you can climb up there and get a nice view. We've got some pictures from when we played up on that bluff.
Yes, we did six shows in 6 states in one day. We started in La Crosse at dawn.
And that was so cool because the view from the bluff at dawn was,
insane. And
I wouldn't have believed it if you would have told me. I'd be like, well, I would have heard of that already by now. I've lived in Wisconsin my entire life. And I saw it and I'm like, oh, I've got a tear in my eye.
Right, because you're seeing Wisconsin and Minnesota and Iowa and everything from up there.
Yeah. And the river.
Mm-hmm. And it's really something else. So there's a lot of good parts to that town. There's a lot of tough parts too. When I was there, a bunch of the industry went away. G. Heilemann Brewing Company closed, and La Crosse Footwear closed. Like these big factories kind of closed down, and that changed the town too in a big way, because in towns like that, a couple of big manufacturing jobs where everybody makes their money.
Yeah.
So
it's sad to see that
but
happen.
it's a beautiful city, a lot of fun, a lot of good people, and I used to work in the news there, and so when I first was moving there, my mother said to me, well, I know you like to go out and party, so watch out for the serial killer. Don't go by the river at night.
That's a normal mom warning.
And
watch out for the serial killer.
And I had never heard of this.
Don't forget to look both ways when you cross the street, and look out for the serial killer.
I was 23 when I moved up.
Okay, right. Yep.
So I was 23 years old, and that's the age of these young guys who find their way into the river. And so it's been, over the past. It started in the mid '90s,
right? And
there's been a dozen since then. Up until I think the last one was in 2010 that they know of.
Wow, that's a pretty long time span
of that it's going on. And that was the thing. A bunch of them happened in the late '90s, and so the police were saying that these guys they went out to the bar, they got too intoxicated. They decided to, instead of going home, they decided to go down to the river and hang out, see the view, maybe, meet a girl. I don't know.
Right, sure.
But whatever happened, that was the last thing they did.
Man.
And so they would wind up in the river, and they would be found, sometimes a few days later, sometimes a few months later. And when I was working at the TV station, Christopher Jenkins, they talk about him a little bit in the upcoming interview. Mm-hmm. This happened to him in Minneapolis, Minnesota. So Christopher Jenkins was at a bar partying in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and fell into the river there.
Okay. And
his body wasn't found for 4 months.
Oh, man.
So, because of its connection to La Crosse on the Mississippi, mm-hmm. and this was one of the main stories on the La Crosse news for weeks.
Wow, yeah. Well, especially the person's missing for that period of time, and there's someone who's, a college student that's
right
seen a lot and
plus
vanishing.
Isn't anywhere. He wasn't even by the river. Like the bars and stuff like that. He went down there and something happened to him. So that's why this particular topic. And I'm sure we're going to talk more about this. But so today we're interviewing. Actually, we've got 3 different people we interview.
Our biggest interview to date.
Right.
The biggest party of people, I should say.
And so it's like a big paranormal conference call. And they made a movie called The Hidden Truth about this. And what's interesting is it's a little different perspective because the parents of Christopher Jenkins reached out and they said, there's no way this can be just an accident. There's no way our son just got drunk and fell in the river. Yeah, they kept on saying, and plus it was his birthday.
Right.
And it never added up. Like the guy whose birthday it is, everybody just lets him leave the bar and nobody follows him or anything.
That's a little strange. I mean, more than a little strange.
Right. Well, they reached out to two detectives, former New York City Police Department detectives, Frank Gannon and Anthony Duarte, and they started investigating it right away. Mm-hmm. And so they got into it, and after a couple years, they come up with this theory that it's a serial killer or a group of serial killers who are doing this all along.
That stretch of the river,
right? That this is happening in several different states, and they say that they see these smiley faces painted, not where the bodies were found, but where the bodies went in.
That's creepy.
They said there was always a smiley face next to.
How do they know where the body went in? Oh, I guess they just. Well, I guess they're detectives.
They're detectives. They're good like that. And some things, and they do have. I mean, one of the last guy that I think went in lacrosse. They have security camera.
Right. Yep. I saw that.
And so they say that these smiley faces were found near where the people went in, and there's this whole theory. And this was big about. Wow. I mean, I'd say 7 years ago, 2008, it kind of took off. These smiley face murder club, that a group of serial killers.
Ooh, and that reminds me of. Like a TV show.
Right.
Something that would be on there. But so a group of, not just one.
Not just one, but a group of like a
cult or something like that.
Yeah, that was taking and that was probably torturing. And the reason they would use the river is because they're in the water long enough, the fingerprints are all gone, and a lot of the, the different parts, if they killed them in a different way, some of that would disappear after spending a long enough time in the river. So that's been like the prevailing theory. Okay. I mean, besides the FBI, because the FBI looked into it, lacrosse police, Minneapolis police, and they all say the same thing. You know that it's these guys
unsolved mystery of but presumably a serial killer or serial killers.
Right, and and the Minneapolis police did move Christopher Jenkins' death to a homicide.
Well, that's telling
because there was some jailhouse tip.
Oh wow, really?
Yeah, but then. Still nothing.
Wow.
So they said, well, we do have some evidence it is homicide, but we have nothing on it.
Can't share.
And it's been a year, it's been a decade since they did that. So, and there's no news. So that's the thing. So the prevailing theory is it's this group of killers, a smiley face murder club that's going through and killing people by the river. But the people we interviewed today who put together this documentary, The Hidden Truth, they don't think it's a serial killer. They think it might be something else. And something supernatural, something paranormal, something a lot more mysterious than just a serial killer.
Or at least they want to explore those options as a possibility, which is something different from anything we've heard before.
Yeah, and so that's what made it fun. Their movie's The Hidden Truth, and we're about to talk to the retired deputy medical examiner from La Crosse County, and then the filmmaker and the paranormal investigator brought in. So
don't forget, our friend Allison joins us too.
And Allison from Milwaukee Ghost, she's going to bring in some folklore in a little bit. She's done a bunch of research on this, so it's going to be fun.
Perfect.
So let's take a listen. We are with the people involved with a movie called The Hidden Truth. And that movie is a documentary that came out in 2012 about the mysterious disappearances of a whole bunch of college-age guys in the La Crosse area in the Mississippi River. And we are with, number one, Wendy.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. And Allison from Milwaukee Ghost. Please say hi.
Hey, everybody.
Okay. And our special guests today to talk about The Hidden Truth we have Scott Marcus, who is the director of the film. Hi, Scott.
Hey, how you guys doing?
And Neil Sanders, a former deputy medical examiner in La Crosse County. Welcome to the show, Neil.
Thank you. Hi, everybody.
And from Wisconsin Paranormal Investigators, Jay Bachochin. Hi, Jay.
Hey, how are you doing? Thanks for having us on.
Fantastic. So we want to talk about the hidden truth and the weird stuff that is happening in La Crosse, Wisconsin. I used to live in La Crosse, Wisconsin, so I know how weird it can get out there.
And our band used to play there all the time.
Yes. We used to play at a club called the 324 and the Warehouse. And we even played at Mount Lacrosse one time, and that was a lot of fun.
And at the Popcorn.
At the Popcorn Tavern. Now, the thing is, these are places that the guys who fell in the river probably went to, and I just hope it wasn't at one of our shows. Either way, we should probably start with Neil as the instigator of this whole thing, and kind of the driving force behind the idea to get at what's behind this. Can you give us a little bit of history? What exactly is going on in La Crosse?
Well, since the late 90s, 1996, 97, La Crosse has experienced periodic drownings of young college-age men. And over the course of time, up until like 2010, they predominantly seem to fit the same demographic as far as age, interests, being students, and of course the one most common factor was a very large amount of alcohol on board each of these young men. But for whatever reasons, they ended up in the Mississippi by La Crosse, and the first one or two, you can look at it as an accidental drowning and death by misadventure, perhaps, unfortunate circumstances. But as, I hate to say it this crudely, but as the bodies accumulated and there was no evidence of foul play, nothing at all to indicate a good reason why these young men were doing this sort of thing, the discontent among the residents in the city kind of grew.
Right, and I remember I used to work at News Channel 8 during this time, and so that was when Christopher Jenkins went missing in Minnesota. That was a big deal. That was a story we led with, almost every day for like a week or two when they were searching for him. And was there a connection to what was happening? And like you say, discontent. And I think when I first moved to La Crosse, even it was in 2000, even my mother said, "Well, watch out when you go drinking by the river." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" She's like, "Well, somebody's killing people your age." And so that does seem to be something. And I was gonna say, Jay, how did you react when you heard about this from Neil? Was this something you'd have heard of before?
Actually, it's not. I get an email from Neil Sanders out in La Crosse, and I'm like, "Who is this guy? He's talking about another drowning about Craig Myers," and I honestly must be living under a rock out here in Twin Lakes, Wisconsin. But I really didn't follow it. But not until, Neil and I really started to talk more. And while we went out on the investigation, I learned all about it then, and it just kind of blew me away.
Well, why did did you think that might be weird that was a paranormal? How would the paranormal be involved here?
Well, that's just it. Neil, he gave us a call because, science couldn't seem to figure it out. The forensics or, any of the authorities, any investigations. So next best thing to look for nothing is to look for a paranormal group. And that was us. So, going in with our take on it, it was kind of an X-file, and that's exactly what we do. We hunt the truth. And whether it's ghosts, aliens, you name it, that's what we're going to do. But, we take everything serious, and we went out there and having to look at all, the evidence and doing our investigation to see if we could find a smoking gun.
And Scott, what was the impetus behind making a movie about it? Like, how did you get involved? Did you know these guys from a different thing, or did they find you, or how did you guys go about say, let's make a movie?
Yeah, I do know Jay. I used to actually host a radio show out of Kenosha on WLIP talking about the paranormal.
Okay.
And so that's how Jay and I first met. And my background is in filmmaking, but it's also, I've always had a big interest in the paranormal. I wrote a book called Voices from the Chicago Grave, and it did a very amateurish documentary in the late 90s on haunted Chicago. So, the filmmaking life and the paranormal interests have always gone kind of hand in hand. And it was actually Jay that approached me with the concept of, maybe we could explore doing a documentary. It wasn't set in stone yet, but, he kind of brought it up to me asking, do you think this would make a good story? Good enough, an interesting story for a documentary. And the sheer concept alone of bringing a paranormal methodology to a crime scene, that alone was a great, unique, different story that I hadn't seen before. So I was pretty interested right off the bat.
And you know what I thought was great about it, and I didn't even know you guys were going into something paranormal with this when, I was watching the movie.
Yeah, same here. I was thinking it would be more the investigation of the serial killer theory, or just some additional leads or something like that. The hidden truth, like some kind of a conspiracy thing, or
what's so hidden? Some dudes is throwing kids into the and I thought as soon as it went to a paranormal thing, I was like, oh, I didn't even think about that before.
Right.
and you talk about that in the movie a little bit, Neil. You talk about the smiley face murder theory and how it doesn't quite add up. And for a lot of people around the country, when those two detectives were on Coast to Coast AM, that was probably the first they've heard of that. Of the first they heard of those poor guys, what happened to them. What about the smiley face stuff didn't add up for you?
Well, initially, there was just a smiley face button that was found somewhere in the river. Maybe the Tribune picked up on it, and that brought that to the fore. But that was a very vague reference, more of a coincidence than anything else. I think that if anything, it wasn't given much more credence than a crude red herring, perhaps, maybe to draw some attention to what was going on, perhaps, in that aspect. But beyond that, all it takes, like I mentioned in the movie sometimes, is one, well, what if, or I think it's this, or I think it's that. And if it gets enough play, whether through social media or conventional media, then it's out there. It's going to be talked about every time.
We lost you for a little bit at the beginning of that then. So what was found in La Crosse was like a smiley face button near where one of the guys went into the river?
That is my understanding, that it was by a lamppost, I believe. I can't speak to 100%, but that's my understanding.
But it hasn't been something that's been taken serious by the La Crosse police.
No, the official party line, of course, with reasonable justification, is that this is just young people getting drunk and becoming disoriented and falling victim to the river. We have no other evidence to show that it's anything but that. But after 9 or 10 cases, it occurred to me that perhaps the lack of any kind of concrete evidence might be evidence in itself.
Right. And, I think you guys really do it well in the movie when you're talking about going to La Crosse and somebody's saying like, yeah, I used to pay like $5 for a wristband and get a pitcher for a penny, and the kind of like how cheap the drinks are. Really like that. One of the places we used to play at, remember, it was like a quarter
power hour.
Yeah, power hour is quarter beers for between 9 and 11. Like that's not a happy hour. That's going out time. So that really that's and that's that might have been dangerous. But speaking as someone who's walked along the river and you guys show it, in the movie, what would compel them to jump in, like
to go toward it, even like when everything else is in the other direction, And
a lot of the stories, like it would be like the guys would leave without even their friends following them. Like, it was Christopher Jenkins' birthday, and he got all messed up, and his friends just let him leave the bar. I always thought that was weird. Like, when it's your buddy's birthday and they're all messed up, you're supposed to take care of them. So all of his friends just, he's just going to go home. He'll be fine. Didn't even think about it. And, why would he go towards the river? I mean, even if he was disoriented. And I think that's let's talk about the paranormal explanation. Why would they go in the river? And Jay, what were some of the theories that you guys were working on?
Well, we did have the theory of actually a couple different theories. One being Lorelei, the serpent spirit siren woman that sat, on the shoreline and called boats in with a beautiful voice and, lead the ships into shore to crash them. So we kind of thought of something like that a little bit. We did think of a siren, but some of that was almost some of it kind of confirmed when we talked to the Ho-Chunk elder, Preston Thomas, where he was saying, that he was talking about the water spirits. And that actually blew us away because that was the first time we heard that. And we already started coming up with a theory. We kept going out there thinking, is there a Medusa of the Mississippi? Well, we don't know.
Right.
That's the reason for the investigation, of course. But we were looking at all these different possibilities of either the siren, the water spirits, and even with the war eagle, which is in the documentary about Mary Olich being one of a young woman who died during that fire in 1870.
So what was the War Eagle again? So the War Eagle was like was it a steam-powered ship?
Yes. And actually it burned right on the dock, a barrel fire. I believe that's what the story was, where a lot of people all got off, but there was a few fatalities. But, at the same time, we're thinking, you think of the paranormal events of anything tragically happening, is it possible that she could have, died, her spirit's still in that part of the water, and she is desperately trying to be saved, and she's calling out, and maybe it's only affecting, younger men who are already intoxicated, getting to that next level that they can hear it. Maybe that's what's drawing them.
Like a drunken dog whistle.
Yeah, well, you kind of. Seriously, kind of. We don't know. We're trying to expand on all the possibilities.
Allison, I know you were doing some research on this too, and you found some Wisconsin legends of the Waterman. Who's the Waterman?
Yeah, well, that was really exciting for me. I was looking at some notes from the Works Progress Administration. That was a New Deal thing during the Great Depression to give university people and researchers and all people from all walks of life jobs. But one of the jobs was to go around and collect Wisconsin folklore. So they have a very long document available through the Wisconsin Historical Society, which shows all the notes. And I was fascinated to find out about the Waterman. I had never heard of that before. And it's actually of Slavic origin. And I'm just going to read a little bit from the notes and see what you guys think about this. Now, the Waterman is not a devil, but he will try also to get your soul. He is not a ghost, for there are villagers who have actually seen him. His castle is situated in the deepest part of the river. His family consists of 3 generations. They can be seen walking on the water at any time, save the ringing of the Angelus during the noon hour. Then they lurk in the castle, and woe betide the boy who is swimming there at the time. For the Waterman ties a hair from a horse's tail around his big toe, drags him down, and drowns him. He seizes the boy's soul and thrusts it into a tripod over an open hearth. The soil boils for 1 year. So there's some more to it, but just reading that, I was startled that it specifically addresses boys being captured along the water by this spirit.
That's gruesome too.
Yeah.
Well, it's that horse's hair that scares me.
Yeah.
His big toe.
Yeah, that's what it says. But the idea of getting dragged and the idea that it specifically went after boys, and to me, reading that, I was like, "What am I reading creepypasta here?" But
right.
But then you look at the date, and it's from 1937.
Wow.
And that was really compelling to me. And there's a lot of legends like this throughout the world. This is a legend that is Slavic in origin. So,
But there's also the Kelpie,
right?
From Great Britain, is that like the Kelpie is a woman that leads you into the water to kill you,
right?
And it's it's supposed like it's a horse-like creature. But the thing is that and in the movie they talk about the water spirits and the Ho-Chunk legends, and the idea is around the world there are legends of things in the water that try to lead you there and kill you. And that was something I never even thought of.
Yeah, I thought that was the part that really captured my attention, was when you were talking to the Ho-Chunk gentleman. And like you said, I hadn't heard any of that before. And having grown up and lived in Wisconsin my entire life, that seems like something that I would have maybe heard or encountered by now. But
yeah, and I want to say thanks, Allison, for forwarding me that email on there, because that is something I have not heard. And we do extensive research, but again, the notes that you found look like they were maybe emailed from 1937. They were kind of hard
to the future.
Put up really big on my phone, but very interesting stuff. I mean, I just heard of Jaws or Nessie. The underwater spirits back when I was growing up. I really didn't hear about a lot of these, so I'm still doing the research, even though our documentary is complete. We still feel like it's not over. It's always an ongoing thing.
Can always have a sequel.
Yeah.
That's for the hidden truth. The hidden truth 2, the truthiest or something. Truth harder. But the thing, Native American legends, the siren song. That links right into the pop culture part of our podcast, and the Odyssey. The siren is what. Odysseus is on his way back to Greece from the Trojan War, and then when they're going past the siren, he makes all of his men put beeswax in their ears so they don't get seduced. But he wants to hear what she sounds like, and so they tie him up to the mast, and he goes, "No matter what, don't let me go." And he's screaming, and that he's just screaming, and he's mad, and it's driving him crazy. He has to get towards her, and he's tied up and won't do it.
Right.
And
I was just going to say, and the movie, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?
Oh, yeah. Based on the Odyssey.
Right, which is obviously based on that, but that was a big, that particular scene was remade in that movie in an interesting way. But it also reminded me of the episode a couple shows back when we were talking about The Wicker Man with the song that we covered.
Oh, yeah, Willow's song.
That was a little bit of a siren song, too, so.
Yeah, she was leading him to his demise.
Not into the water, but
to the loss of his sexual innocence. And, you guys did investigations in the areas where where the Golden Eagle had sank. You guys, you brought a boat over that, and then brought a couple of psychics, and then also brought some equipment. And then some weird stuff happened with that equipment when you did that. Can you tell us about that, Scott?
Yeah. It was really amazing, and I think the more I think about it and look back on it, the more it stands out as being incredible, I guess. Because it was like clockwork in a way. We went out there, we had a boat and a captain, and it was basically a high-end fishing boat, and plenty of room for Jay and a fellow investigator to be on the boat, and then for me to be there with my lights and camera and cover it. And we could tool around all we want, and everything was fine. But just about when we're about ready to get started actually filming, doing the actual documentary, not just enjoying being on the boat, we only get a couple of seconds in, and we lose all power. There's an immense battery drain on these 2 huge batteries that should have been able to keep us out there for at least 6 hours, but gone in an instant. And obviously, anybody that's familiar with the paranormal, battery drain is something that happens with equipment. That sometimes if there's something out there, it'll just pull energy from wherever it can find it. And we had a lot of it right there. And in a moment, it was gone. It was really, quite breathtaking.
Scott, that was actually the EVP we caught, or whatever that was after the fact. It was about 20 seconds-ish before the
it was like
power drain.
Moments before.
Right.
Yeah.
I call that the iPhone dilemma. Whenever I decide to get in the car or go for a run, then my battery drains immediately. We had that, happen though.
In Wausau.
In
Or Merrill.
In Merrill, after a show, we played at this club in Merrill, and they're like, "Oh yeah, the basement's totally haunted." And we had our video camera with us, and we're like, "Oh yeah, let's go." And the video cameras, the battery was at least half charged, and we'd hardly used it all night. And
we like to go into these things prepared. We make sure the battery's half charged.
Half charged. Well, and we were half charged.
Why bother charging it completely? I mean, really.
We were half charged too after playing for 3 hours, and so. Went downstairs and immediately just off.
And it was terrifying down there too, by the way.
So, I mean, we've experienced the same kind of thing, and just an interesting kind of thing. Like, how does that, you
can't, scientifically, you can't explain it. Like,
No,
But
especially
problems-
because it really happened it happened twice in a very profound way. The other time, it wasn't a battery drain, but it was an equipment malfunction, and it was when we were doing that little interview with Neil, and I believe it was Preston, another one of the Ho-Chunk elders. Well, I've got them both mic'd up. They're on individual wireless mics, and I've got the camera rolling as we're just setting up lights, getting kind of footage of them talking, and you can hear them talking about the weather or whatever they were talking about just fine. And as soon as we began the interview, both mics, it was as if the government put a blackout on it, because we were still picking up the mics, but they were solid, hard static, both microphones. So something definitely interfered, again, right as we were about to get down to business.
Yeah, that's interesting timing.
Yeah, I would say. And, also, you guys try to take some EVPs with this particular thing. And you got a couple of interesting things. Can you describe a little bit of the evidence that you did here and where you actually did the EVP stuff?
We did it on the Mississippi. Well, actually, it was, and I just mean because the Mississippi is pretty large.
Right.
But we did it right in front of Riverside Park. I believe it is right where the battery drained, wasn't it, Scott? Right around there?
I believe so, yeah.
And of course, we didn't hear this, while it was recording. You take that any type of chance when you are out doing anything outdoors because you don't have a controlled environment. So, any sound that you pick up, it could be anything. I mean, the way the water swooshes or somebody zips up, a bag on the boat, you don't know. But what we caught, it's so hard. It almost sounds like a cry, but not from a child. And it's so hard to explain. You would actually have to hear it. But it's something we did not hear when it was caught, and then the battery drain. Okay.
Oh yeah, that part freaked me out. I was watching it in bed late last night, and that was when I was like, okay,
well,
turn the light on.
Right.
And the thing is, we go through all the evidence. We go through the evidence. You're putting your headphones on. You're listening for any type of sound, and you try to do it as quickly as you can because you were just there. But as well, Scott, his camera picked it up too, so it was not our equipment. So we don't know what that was.
And you guys did have the theory of, the ghost of Mary Ulrich.
Mm-hmm.
And why her in particular? Was she just the most evil of the bunch, or what?
I think she was.
No,
really,
kind of the opposite.
Go ahead.
It
I was going to say the opposite. I think she's the most sympathetic character because she was on her way to a family wedding, I believe, when she passed on. So there might be the strongest emotional charge, and the community outpouring could feed into that at the time as well. That's my opinion.
Yeah, Mary Ulrich worked for her uncle, who had the German newspaper in La Crosse, and the population was predominantly of German extraction. So she delivered the newspapers, acted as a gatherer of news. So she was quite a popular young lady in the city of La Crosse. And her demise under such tragic circumstances, as you read the articles in the paper that were written at the time, it really struck the community hard that she would pass in this manner. Her father or her uncle, when he put her on the board, placed her in the care of the ship's barber. And when the bodies were recovered after the boat sank in the tragedy, the bodies were discovered to be holding hands. So to all purposes, it looked as if the barber made an effort to try and save her at the last minute desperately, and of course wasn't successful.
Oh, that's so tragic.
You know, one thing I was going to say to you, Neil, is that now you've been a La Crosse resident all of your life. You worked in La Crosse, and looking for these alternative explanations. Have you had any kind of backlash or anything like that from your colleagues?
Well, fortunately for me, the medical examiner at the time I was the deputy was also one of my best friends. We'd worked professionally as ambulance EMTs. So when I retired from the medical examiner's office, I was still plugged in, you might say. And I went to John after I got motivated to do this, basically to get his blessing, if you will, and let him know that I was going to open a private investigation in the paranormal. So while he couldn't officially sanction what we did, he had knowledge of what we were doing, and he actually viewed our movie when it was completed.
How do you feel is the reception that The Hidden Truth has gotten since you screened it at the Chicago Paranormal Conference in October of 2012?
Well, I want to make one comment.
Please do.
When we were, the movie was completed and we were looking for venues to share the movie in La Crosse. One of the places that I approached was the La Crosse Public Library. They have a film night on Wednesdays and Thursdays, I believe, where they screen films. And I believe I even sent them a copy of the DVD, or perhaps just in my conversation with them. Anyway, they turned down the movie as not quite right for their film night and perhaps a little too controversial for their audience. But before it could actually premiere, they did order 2 copies for their library to be shared with the general public.
Interesting.
But still a little too controversial for the La Crosse Public Library movie night, which I heard was a big hit. So that's too bad. And what do you guys? I mean, Scott, as a filmmaker, what's some of the reactions that you've got?
Well, Neil and Jay are way closer to it, still being local out there. I'm in California, so I'm not privy to as much face-to-face communication. But what I have, and obviously I was there at the Paranormal Conference in Chicago, but I was not at the screenings that they had up in Onalaska. But what I've noticed is that the response has been so positive from people that have seen it. People go in usually not knowing what to expect and then walk out saying, wow, that's really thought-provoking. And we don't tell people what to think or what the answer is because we don't know still. But we present a lot of information, and it's kind of opened people's minds to other ideas, which I think is ultimately a huge success. But anytime you see any negative comments, it's usually on a message board on a news station that wrote an article or something. And the article might be written well and impartial, but you'll get some people commenting, as the internet likes to do.
Right.
Negatively.
Haters gonna hate.
Yeah. But, it's always from people that haven't, totally. It's always from people that haven't seen the film, though. So I think that's what really speaks volumes, is that if you give it an opportunity to open your mind, it usually does.
Absolutely. And Jay, are you as famous as the Ghost Hunters now, or what's going on? Do you just do you show the movie at parties and stuff?
No, I'm just Jay. That's what I say. You know what? When we started this, we started out to document for ourselves. That's why we called Scott. That's why we're out there. Our intentions were never to go bank with this and become, Jay Bachochin of Wisconsin paranormal investigators, or
right.
maybe Scott. No, I'm just joking. But honestly, on a serious note, we were doing this in hopes to show this in the La Crosse area, and I believe we did that. And we were there. This was last September. We had some posters. People wanted us to sign them, and you kind of have that feel of, wow, we really achieved something. But when it was all done, we did it. This is what we were trying to do. And after the smoke clears, I'm still just Jay, and I'm okay with that.
Right. Well, I think as an alternative to the idea that a group of, like, there's a club of serial killers roaming the countryside, throwing people in on the I-94 corridor or I-90, corridor. I think an alternative to that idea totally makes sense, because I always found the smiley face theory hard to believe in that. Why hasn't anybody talked about it? You know what I mean? Like, if there's like 50 people who are part of this organization, how can it not have somebody have cracked at some time, or just been caught doing something else, and to try to get out of it, they're like, hey, well, I am part of this murder club, and try to cut a plea deal or something. It just seems to me like it. I never thought I would say that a ghost in a lake makes more sense than a serial killer, but a ghost in the lake makes more sense than a serial killer. And I think that's a really interesting interpretation of it.
Yeah, and I really appreciated how you guys were so methodical and so scientific with everything, that it really was, convincing. It's, as you were pointing out with the different statistics of how many campuses there are that have water features close by and bars where people binge drink, and none of the other locations.
Right. And this is what I'll always say is, the word paranormal does not mean ghost. Mm-hmm. It does mean ghost, but it also means anything not normal. And it's still not normal. So it still makes this, the drownings out there in La Crosse, it's still a mystery. Thus the question mark at the end of the hidden truth, because of what Neil and Scott have said. We're just trying to give you guys something else to think about besides the smiley face killers.
Definitely. And
what I was going to say, when you talk about the other college campuses, Winona, Minnesota, the bars are way closer to the river than they are in La Crosse. And we all know that Minnesotans can't hold their liquor like Wisconsin people can. So you would think people be dropping in the river there every other week.
And it's true, because Levy Park right there, you could literally, it's like 2.5 blocks from the bar that we were filming in front of, and you could literally just walk right. There's nothing there to stop you. And right across the Mississippi, on the Wisconsin side, you've got a beach where you're seeing families swimming. So it's like,
right.
Why isn't it happening in Winona or these beaches or whatnot?
Sure. What's drawing in La Crosse? It's not drawing them in other places.
Right.
Yeah.
And that was the other a paranormal possibility, is the way the rivers meet there. The Wisconsin River, the Black River, and the Mississippi, they all converge right in front of La Crosse at Riverside Park.
And so you have a lot of different energies. Is there any, I was thinking about the Golden Eagle, and I was thinking about the
War Eagle.
I'm sorry, the Golden. I don't know why I was thinking about Golden Eagles. It's probably a casino. But the War Eagle, and then I was also thinking about those, the Native American tragedies that occurred near there too, the massacres, and thinking is there something cursed about that area,
or maybe just because so much tragedy has occurred there, like they were saying, so many very strong emotional events occurred.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think Neil could feel that answer to that question.
Yeah.
Well, you don't want to put the word cursed on.
Of course.
The area. The Native Americans regard the area right there around Riverside Park as a very sacred area.
Okay.
It's a very spiritual area for them. I remember early in our investigation when we were still just sort of floundering around as to which direction we're going to go, I speculated that it would be interesting to find a Native American to talk to, because I got the feeling that Riverside Park was a very spiritual place. And I wanted to get their take on it. And we were blessed not only with two Native Americans to come and talk with us on the movie, but Preston is an elder in the Medicine clan, which is that's the spiritual people. He's a shaman. And if anyone could speak about their cultural beliefs, it was this man. And it was a dream of a lifetime to sit at a fire and talk with a Native American and just get a glimpse into some of their culture and how it relates to them even today. Something that I don't think a lot of people, I know none of the other white men that I know of could ever say they had an opportunity like that. It was, ever since I was a kid watching cowboy movies, and I always felt more attuned with the Native Americans than I did with the cowboys. I don't know if maybe that was something to do with a past life, perhaps.
I thought that was interesting because it was good to get that kind of perspective in the movie. And too often, a lot of times when we talk about Native American legends, they're just kind of thrown on there as the usual. Like people be like, "Oh, there was a burial mound there too," or something. Just, they don't even go into any kind of detail or talk to anybody about it. It's just like somebody told them one time that there was a burial mound there, and they just use that to say like, "Well, it must be haunted," and without any kind of even like investigation or taking into account the culture. And so, water spirits and the Kelpie and the Waterman and the Siren and just the idea that there's something in the water, and there might be something in the water in La Crosse, that's what the Hidden Truth is all about. And when people want to get a copy, they want to see the movie, or they want to contact you guys where they might have interest in I know a lot of people have interest in the case, or if they have any leads or anything like that, where is the best place that they can get in touch with you?
Well, we can actually go right to www.hiddentruthproductions.com.
Okay, hiddentruthproductions.com, and that's got the contact information. And it also has a trailer.
Yes, it does.
Okay, if people would like to see what the movie's all about. And we'll embed the YouTube trailer in the show notes. So if you're looking at the show notes while you're listening to the podcast, you can get a little taste of what the Hidden Truth is all about. Anything else to cover that we might have missed, or anything that you feel want to get across a little bit?
Well, I'll say that there's also the Facebook page as well, if people wanted to reach out that way. And I know I'll be at the Chicago Ghost Conference, which is the first weekend in October. I do not know if the movie is going to be screened there, but we might be invited to do that. I kind of hope that happens. But if anybody is in the area, first weekend in October, take a look at chicagohauntings.com for info on that one.
And go meet Scott at the Chicago Paranormal Conference.
Absolutely. And I just wanted to thank you guys because, like I said, I think it's really interesting just exploring those roads. You could be opening doors to other possibilities in the investigation. And, hopefully some answers will come out someday that will help the families have closure and help, prevent future tragedies from happening. So.
Hey, you know what? Like I said, just because the documentary's over does not mean our investigation's over. We've got Neil out there, right in the thick of it. And I'm just a 4-hour drive away. I could always call Scott and get Scott down here too, right, Scott?
Oh yeah.
But the thing is, that's how serious we take it. I actually have not only Neil, but a few friends I've made during our premiere in Alaska that have friended me, and they're throwing me Tribune stuff that you might only see over there. So it gives us all this information to constantly keep a look at and keep documenting it.
That's
okay,
great.
And if people want to get in touch with the Wisconsin Paranormal Investigators, what's your site, Jay?
It's WPIHuntsTheTruth.com.
And if you've got a ghost that needs busted, call Jay and let's check it out.
Well, there is a link, a submission link actually, right on the homepage that it's to report any paranormal, whether it's ghost in the basement, Bigfoot standing in your backyard, UFO land over. I'm actually working on a few different things, but it's 100% confidential. It doesn't go on social media or anything like that, but
Sure.
It gives me and the public to be able to hunt the truth. That's the only way to do it, because I can't go door to door and I can't keep looking up in the skies 24/7 because I do have a family and a job.
Right.
I do need to sleep. But, this is the best way to keep, investigating the truth, is to have those submissions. So, I've got a few that I'm working on right now. Keep it going, and maybe sometime or another we find that truth.
Okay. Allison, any more questions or anything you want to add?
I just wanted to thank everybody for producing the movie, just because, as we were talking about, it gives us other ideas for what might be going on there. And perhaps it is some kind of paranormal creature that shows up in different areas. And right now, it might be in La Crosse, but who's to say it won't pick up and affect another community at another point in time? So it's interesting to just think about that as another possibility to watch out for.
And I also think it honors, the poor guys that lost their lives in the river. And it says something that, there's something here we don't know about. They just didn't get blasted and walk into the river. Right. It's saying that something else might be up, and let's just not blame them for what happened. That it could be something else. So I think it does a great job of honoring the memories of those guys who had this tragedy happen to them and the families and stuff. And it gives them something else to think about rather than But still, warning to everybody: don't drink too much and walk near the water. Like, be careful. Always watch out. Always be careful. And that's about it. So once again, thanks, guys.
Thank you for having us on.
Thank you.
And
thank you, guys. Good luck with everything.
So those guys were pretty interesting. And make sure you check out that Hidden Truth movie. And for our song this week, well, we couldn't resist that the name is so... it's the kind of name that lends itself to a song title.
It sure does.
So this one's called The Smiley Face Murder Club.
You were stumbling when you walked along the river. You were crying when you walked along the river. You never heard me follow you. You should have watched your liquor. No one ever expects to be loved without a trace. No one ever expects the smiling face. The smiling face without a trace. The smiling face. I don't give a damn what your name was. No, I don't give a damn who you were. You could have been somebody else. It was just your turn. I wanted to know what it felt like. It's not fair. They won't ever understand the bond that we now share. No one ever expects to be loved without a trace. No one ever
for listening to today's episode. You can find us online at OthersidePodcast.com. Until next time, see you on the other side.
You smell it?